Hello and welcome back to my channel, Explaining Biology Clearly. Today I'm going to talk to you about cellulose. We'll take a look at its structure and its function. And so any exam question that asks you to relate the two together or explain how its structure allows it to carry out its function, we'll talk about what you would say for that. So first of all, what is cellulose? So cellulose is a carbohydrate to start with. So it's a type of carbohydrate, and being a carbohydrate means that it's made of only carbon, hydrogen and oxygen atoms. The specific type of carbohydrate that it is a polysaccharide. Check out my videos on monosaccharides and disaccharides to understand a little bit more about those. Now, what a polysaccharide is it's a polymer, and that means that it's made of lots of monomers, single units joined together. In carbohydrates, the single units are monosaccharides. The particular monosaccharide that cellulose is made up of is beta glucose. I do have a video on starch, which is another type of polysaccharide, and that's made of alpha glucose. What is the function of cellulose? So cellulose is found in plant cell walls. It's the structural material that they're made of. It's also found in the cell wall of protists as well. That's another kingdom of living organisms. It includes things like seaweed and algae. Bacteria and fungi do have cell walls, but they're not made of cellulose. They're made of two different materials. So let's take a look at its structure, and then we'll talk about how that links with its function. So down below, I've drawn three separate beta glucose molecules. So these are the monomers, the monosaccharides that make up the polymer, that make up the polysaccharides cellulose. So just to run through the structure of a single beta glucose molecule, it has 6 carbons arranged in these positions. There's a 6th one sticking up there. But what we're interested in is what's around the carbon 1 and the carbon 4. So the carbon 1 has an OH group that sticks up at the top, and the carbon 4 has an OH group that sticks up at the bottom. So they're sort of diagonally opposite each other like that, which is different to alpha glucose, where they're both OH groups are at the bottom of carbon 1 and carbon 4. So in order for the beta glucose molecules to join together, we need to have a glycosidic bond form. And so that forms between two OH groups. It's where we lose a molecule of water and we're left with a single oxygen there in the centre. Now, the problem with this arrangement of beta glucose molecules is we couldn't actually have a glycosidic bond forming, because those two OH groups need to be next to each other, and they're not. So what happens in the formation of cellulose is that alternate, and that means every other, beta glucose is flipped or inverted. And so it's flipped and it's inverted 180 degrees, flipped or inverted 180 degrees. So I'll draw at the bottom here what the molecule ends up looking like. So this one stays the same, so it's still got its OH group at the top and its hydrogen at the bottom. But this one is going to be flipped. So now the OH group is at the top and the hydrogen is at the bottom. And up here, the hydrogen is at the top and the OH group is at the bottom. This one is not going to flip, because it's only every other, so the next one here will flip. So this one still has its OH group at the bottom, and so on, like that. So now, hopefully, you can see that what's happened is we've now got these OH groups next to each other, so we can form a glycosidic bond. So we can lose water and we can be left with that oxygen, which allows the formation of our glycosidic bond. So we'll get another one forming here. I'm left with our oxygen, our glycosidic bond. So if we were to look at that molecule, I suppose from a distance, what we're going to see is a bond, say at the bottom there, and then we'll get a bond at the top, like that, and then we'll get a bond at the bottom, and so on. Top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, and so on. And so that leads to a straight chain. So inverting and flipping every other molecule, or alternate molecules, that's quite a good word, alternate molecules, flipping those leads to our straight chain. Now cellulose isn't just one straight chain. Let's represent more of them by single lines. We'll have multiple straight chains joining together, providing strength. And a group of these joining together is called a myofibril. So it produces lots of them joined together, lots of straight chains joined together, produces that myofibril. And they're held together by sort of quite weak, but lots of hydrogen bonds. So my blue lines there represent hydrogen bonds, and those are between negatively charged oxygens and positively charged hydrogens that stick out from these beta glucose molecules. So each hydrogen bond is quite weak, but there are lots of them, so it allows the myofibril to form. Now cellulose isn't just one myofibril. You will have multiple myofibrils. So let's say there's one myofibril, there's another myofibril, another one, another one, another one, another one in the cell wall, and they're also at 90 degrees to each other. So it forms this very, very strong structure. So the structure allows the function. So the function of the cell wall is to be very strong and very rigid. And that alternate ones flipped, the straight chains joining together to form the myofibrils held by hydrogen bonds, and then the myofibrils lining up at 90 degrees to each other is what allows it to have its very strong, rigid function. And that allows the cell to resist changes in pressure. So sometimes a plant cell may take up water, and it causes the cytoplasm to swell, the cell becomes more turgid, but the cell wall resists that change. Sometimes a plant cell loses water and the cytoplasm shrinks, but the cell wall again resists that change. It stays the same from the outside. So if you were to look at the cell from the outside, because of that cell wall, it's always rigid, it's always the same shape from the outside. I hope you found this video useful. Don't forget to check out my channel for videos on other topics throughout the A Level Biology course, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks very much.